Hello, my name is Aaron Cavanagh and I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Post-Burnout.com. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. This is our website's podcast where we publish full-length recordings of our interviews, which are sometimes the unedited versions of our site's articles and at other times are exclusives. If you're a returning listener, thank you for coming back, and if this is your first time listening, thank you for checking us out. We hope you enjoy and consider subscribing, giving the episodes a thumbs up if you're on YouTube, or giving it a rating if you're anywhere else. It really helps us out. Thank you. Alright, in this edition of Post-Burnout.com interviews, Rachel Quinn and Sarah Murnane of the Dublin indie rock band SPRITZ discuss their debut single Anyway, how they met and formed the band at a 1975 gig, the Dublin music scene, how the band only solidified 5 days before their debut gig, their plans for 2025, and much more. I was also coming toward the end of a cold when we recorded this interview, so I apologise in advance for how sickly I sound throughout. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy. I think this was a nice discussion.
Hi, how are
Hey,
you?
how's it going?
Good,
It's
how
nice
are
to meet
you?
you guys.
Nice to meet you,
Could I
Tom.
just ask, maybe just as like an introductory thing, if just say who's speaking and what instruments you play in the band.
My name is Rachel and I sing and do rhythm guitar.
And I'm Sarah, and I play lead guitar.
My understanding about the background of this band was that you guys actually started at a 1975 gig in 2023. Is that correct?
Well, not playing at 975
Sure,
gig,
sure.
unfortunately, but how I wish.
That would have been a
yeah,
hell of a first show. Just
Yeah, just get up on
exactly.
stage.
No, yeah, Rachel and I just met like kind of sort of basically through some mutual friends at a gig, and we got very drunk and we're like, we should start a band. That'd be amazing. You play music, and then it actually worked. So
Yeah,
it's a good
after
way
a
to.
few months of trying.
Yeah, exactly.
was that at the St. Anne's Park gig or?
It was, yeah.
I was at that and went to see because I was interested in the lineup because Caroline Polkachek was meant to support,
Yeah.
but I think she got sick, and I was like, oh, so we got like a Maddie Healy acoustic show beforehand.
Yeah.
When did you just meet at that gig, or did you just know each other beforehand?
We like knew of each other beforehand, but that gig we like went to our mutual friend's house for prees and kind of just got yapping at that.
Yeah, that's the meeting.
Yeah.
What was your kind of experience, I guess, in playing in bands prior to that?
I didn't really have any. I'd wanted to for ages, but like hadn't really found like the right way to go about it. And then found Sarah and
Exactly.
and she was like, I play bass and guitar if you want to like maybe play together sometime. I was like, say less.
Yeah. No, I've been in some bands like as a teenager, and like played like local kind of gigs like around Kildare and stuff. And I've been kind of in and out bands like I never really like I was kind of a kid or whatever. And then when I got to college, nothing ever really happened. Again, really until I met Rachel, obviously. I kind of tried, but no, nothing ever stuck. So.
We're playing bands as like a teenager because I think that can be difficult because so many clubs and stuff are like over 18, so it'd be kind of difficult when you're underage to actually get something going.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think as well, you're sort of like limited by your means as well. Like I didn't know
Yeah.
how to like book a gig. Like I didn't know what to do, how that really functioned. Like you're still quite sort of, I don't really know what's going on. So it's difficult to kind of get things going. But I have a lot of respect for people who do, because lots of people we know did do it as teenagers, which is crazy. But yeah.
And were you self-taught, or were you educated in music?
I've played piano since I was like 5, but I didn't start playing guitar until I was like 17. I had one since I was 10, and then like tried to like learn off YouTube, played like a C chord badly, and I was like, nope, never mind, this isn't for me.
The C chord's a hard one to start with.
Oh yeah. But then like randomly decided to, it was like at the end of the first lockdown, like I was going into 6th year and I was like, you know what, I'll give it another go. Because I was kind of getting into the idea of like songwriting and stuff. And I don't know, it just kind of like stuck a bit better that time. So I'm self-taught in guitar, but.
And for yourself?
Not self-taught at all. I had a very strange experience at like 7 years old where I was put in a room full of musical instruments. This is not a joke. There's like a cello and a violin, and, a tambourine and a guitar. And I picked up the guitar. My mum was literally like, "Okay, that's your instrument now." And then I went to that's a true story. And then I started going to lessons. I actually loved it. And I had a very scary, little, like actual like punk guitar teacher, and I was a 7-year-old wearing like pink tracksuit bottoms. And he taught me initially. And then after a year or so, I had a guitar teacher, David Hawkins, and he was literally my guitar teacher since I was 8 years old until 19. And yeah, he taught me everything I know. He was an amazing, amazing guitar teacher.
I love that idea of just like putting a kid. I love the idea of just like putting a kid in the room, being like, "Okay, pick whatever." It's like a musical Willy Wonka or something.
No, exactly, and it kind of worked because I was like, "This is the one I'm most intrigued by." And I think when you're so young, like you don't like because all the kind of like hired stuff. I think when you're older and you try to learn a new instrument, you don't really realize when you're a kid because you're kind of being forced to do it. You know, like it's just you just have to do it. And then by the time you get a bit older, it's kind of more fun because it's more like creative input. But yeah.
What were you listening to then as kids that were kind of like inspiring you in terms of actually like, learning your instrument? I mean, were you trying to emulate other artists you were listening to, or were you just learning the chords and just, trying to make a melody with it?
I probably was like a lot of emulation.
Yeah.
Like my dad is really into music, as everyone's fathers seem to be. They like kind of like rock music. So there's a lot of that, and I'd always listen to it. I was very, very interested in it because he was interested in it, and my mum was interested in it. And then like like when and then I don't know, I think I really liked the idea of being a rock star when I was like a kid. Like I wanted to be like I wanted to be Jimmy Page. Like that's just all I wanted. I wanted to like play like a massive guitar solo and like kick like score the winning goal and like I wanted to whatever, I don't know. I was very appealed to that kind of character, I think, as opposed to the actual music. I didn't really care about the music. I didn't. When I was a kid, I didn't give a shit. I was like, I love cool. That's all I cared about. I wanted to be like Bill Hicks and Anthony Bourdain.
Those are some good references.
Yeah, I was a musical. That was my dream. And then later on, I cared about music. But it's not very inspiring, I know. But
I'm inspired. No, I think that's cool. Like the idea of like kind of sort of envisioning yourself in that stage, because like I do think for like kids kind of growing up. I mean, I think you do. I don't know if you agree with me on this, but I think you do perhaps need that visualization of like I'm gonna be like Jimmy Page, or I'm gonna be like Led Zeppelin, just kind of like playing these like big auditoriums. Do you think that kind of like in any way kind of like inspired you when it came to the trials and tribulations that we all go through when we're like learning an instrument for the first time, the idea of like envisioning what this could eventuate into?
Yeah, I think so. I think like if you're like inspired by someone that much and you're like, oh, this is what I want, then like you'll kind of do whatever like to get there. And like it is good motivation. Like
yeah, I think performance is a big aspect of it as well. Like, and even as I got a little bit older, like when I was more a teenager and I was going to loads of gigs, like I always said, like I obviously very interested in the music, and there's so many musicians that are quite like slow and interesting and do cool stuff that I'm very into, and I will sit and listen to my records and I love it. But if I go to a show and I have to watch some fucking guitar nerd twiddle around for 2 hours, I'm like, yeah, that's great, but like I don't care. But if I go to a show and you like set your guitar on fire and throw it at me and kick me in the face, that's like the best show I've ever been to. So there's an element of like you want to engage people.
Yeah, like stage presence is such like a make or break factor for gigs.
Yeah. Did you actually find when you were going to like club shows and stuff and like smaller gigs, yeah, did that kind of inspire you in terms of like the capabilities of what was possible, I guess, at like a smaller scale like that? Because, obviously, I mean, like you have the grand theatrics when you're playing not only arenas, but I'd say even at a theater stage, you have kind of a lot of opportunities that aren't presented really at like a smaller club stage. Did you find like actually going to see live shows, like not even just necessarily in terms of the music, but even like the banter in between songs or anything like that was kind of influencing, I guess, the possibilities of I guess doing a band at a smaller scale?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I kind of only started going to like smaller gigs in like Workman's or the Grand Social in like once I got to college, because obviously like when I started getting into like writing songs and playing music, and the idea of playing gigs, like it was all during COVID. So like I was kind of only seeing like the like artists that were like playing the Three Arena, Three Olympia, like
Yeah.
and like the smaller ones that would be opening for them. I never really like considered the like small like club gigs. But then like once I got there, once I like I think I like saw the Last Apollo in
Yeah.
Workman's, and I was like, oh, this is cool, because like she's like my age and she's
Yeah.
up there and she has like a good following. I'm like, oh, okay.
Last Butler are great. Yeah, I got
Yeah.
them. I think opening for sprints at the at Whelan's, and that was like such a great show. Yeah, I think like I wish kind of like more club levels were kind of open to like younger kids, because as you were saying, like that was kind of my experience too. Like before I was like 18, was going to shows at the Olympia and the Arena because it was like the only place that would let under 16s in.
Yeah.
So I do think it's kind of inspiring, perhaps, if you can see, um, like I don't know, like people kind of actually in the scene, so to speak, perform and actually get a following. I think that would it's kind of like the punk rock thing where it's like you see the Ramones and you're like I can do that, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
100%, absolutely.
Yeah. No, like
So sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, that like it like being exposed like at a younger age is also like so like good, almost like developmentally, like he's because you
Yeah.
get that like outlook. But our drummer Luca, she's in another band called the Amniotics, and
Yep.
they played an all ages gig in the Grand Social a few months ago. And like the like under 16-year-olds were going even harder than anyone at our gigs. Like one of them
Yeah.
like texted them afterwards being like, "Oh, you guys are really good. I sprained my wrist falling off the ceiling like at your gig." I was like, "What? Sorry?"
Amazing.
Yeah, actually, I saw the punk band, the Australian punk band, the Chats, and they did 2 nights at the Academy, and I bought tickets to both, and I didn't know that one of them was like an over 14s gig, and I noticed that too, actually, like at the over 14s gig, you had like these kids, and they were just like going absolutely apeshit for it. It was like absolutely like just like pure carnage in the best way
Oh,
possible.
exactly.
And then like the next night was like the over 18 show, and it was just like people were still into it and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that real kind of like, obviously when you're like 14, 15, you can
Have so much more energy.
you can break your neck and then just get like back up and stuff and keep
Exactly.
dancing. So and then you get to like, 19, you're just decrepit and stuff. So when you two met each other and you were talking about perhaps starting a band, what was the kind of common overlap in terms of who you were listening to? And generally, what was the kind of contrast too? I mean, was there certain artists that you guys didn't see eye to eye to, but you were like, well, that's an interesting kind of like perspective in terms of being able to, I guess, add certain elements that perhaps you weren't aware of or perhaps even didn't like.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about Rachel and I's music taste is that we operate in the same like space.
Mhm.
Like we're both into indie music, indie rock music, and like that in like to its broader sense, like going more towards the rock side a little bit and then more towards the indie side. And that kind of like general kind of like alternative music scene. But then I think while we like each other's music taste, we would gravitate towards different areas in it. So
Mm.
I'm more of like a kind of like national Nick Cave, the
MCR.
and space, and then also like not a band of all time, but that's a whole other
Yeah.
discussion. But as I got older, like it's more like national Nick Cave, the that kind of like space, Tom Waits, sad old man music, and then but Rachel would go more towards, I would say, like bit more contemporary, like you're into like Biba Doobie and
Yeah. Pillow Queens,
Pillow
the Japanese
Queens.
house kind of thing,
New Dad, that kind of stuff, which is kind of fun because I didn't really know a lot of that music until I met you very well. Like, I not that I'd written it off, but I kind of had been a bit more like, oh, like it's whatever. I don't care too much about it. So it was nice.
Yeah.
To broaden in that sense. But then again, there is overlap. But again, like I like all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be
like
I
there's
naturally...
a lot of like bands that the two of us would listen to like simultaneously, but like it's like the stuff that are in between like the like 90s and like contemporary kind of thing. Like
exactly.
Anywhere there. But it's nice because I think everyone in the band, like we all like the same music, but at the same time we each have such different like musical backgrounds and like where we would gravitate towards in that little spectrum of indie rock. Like Rishi, our bassist, he like has like a jazz background, so he incorporates a lot of that into his bass playing. Luca likes a lot more chill stuff, but like will go very hard on the drums.
Did you find like when you two before the other members came in, was there kind of a set determination of what this project would be, or was it kind of more organic? You guys were just playing, and then what kind of came out of it came out of it. I mean, how kind of, I guess, calculated was the project from its inception?
Not very.
I was going to say organic is one word, but blind luck could be another word also used.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it was more. I think we just wanted to play. You had songs, and I wanted to play those. I wanted to play your songs. I thought your songs were great.
Thank you.
When you played them for me, and that's what I cared about. I was like, Rachel's a great songwriter, and she's very talented.
Like we have original material that we could actually like use.
Yeah, and then we wanted to play live, and then we literally like it was the most random, bizarre beginning of just like literally just because we didn't know Rishi and Luca at all, literally not at all, and they just came to play a gig. And we had maybe 2 rehearsals before.
We literally met the two of them like 5 days before the gig.
And then just worked out.
Because we submitted a video of us rehearsing like on a whim to like the Trinity Battle of the Bands with UCD last year. And like I was like sick in bed for like a week before it, and then like I got an email a week and a half before the gig being like, oh, so you guys got in, and we were like, oh, Slay. So we actually like need to start a band.
But yes, no plan, no direction, no thought put into it whatsoever. Besides, I like just we wanted to play live. Basically,
it was kind of like the universe like forced us to do it.
Yeah, basically.
Well, that's kind of cool. I like that kind of like idea of just like trial by fire. Because do you think if that opportunity hadn't arisen, that perhaps like the project would have been slower in terms of actually getting out the gate, or do you think it would have kind of progressed at sort of a similar route, I guess, as it has now? Or do you think that kind of initiative gave you the kind of charge to sort of go, okay, we're gonna like actually get this band together and actually get it on a stage?
I think we did need that little push because we were like talking about it for ages. We were like, oh, we should probably like look for a bassist and drummer sometime soon. But like that, like we were like we had to find a drummer and bassist then, and then like after that gig we got another gig because my friend was organizing one, and we were like, I was like, are you guys free again? And they were like, yeah, I guess so. And then the second gig was when we introduced Holly, who is our third guitarist, to the band. But at the time she was on keyboard, and she does not like to talk about the fact she was on keyboard.
So I just want to talk, just before we get on to the band's music. I just want to talk a little bit about your background, Rachel, because Sarah's kind of mentioned there that like her dad was kind of gave her a lot for sort of early kind of, I guess, rock influence. I mean, was your household particularly musical, or were you kind of discovering stuff by yourself? Or
yeah, no, my house was quite musical. My dad especially, because he's like a boomer, so he would like be playing the Beatles and the Who like constantly, and like I have a vivid memory of like him, like he had the Beatles 1 CD when I was like 4 or whatever, and like going to primary school, and like I had the track list like memorized. Like I'd be like, can you put on number like 4, number 7, please? And he would be like, okay. And he was like, that happened maybe once. I was like, no, Dad, that happened every time I got in the car. I was obsessed with that CD, and then he like made his own little mixtapes because he didn't want to pay for the music, and I was like, slay.
Yay for
but,
piracy.
But then like he'd just be playing like Pink Floyd and the Blues Brothers a lot, like when he was cooking dinner, like blasting it because my mom wasn't in the house, so until she got home it would be like so loud. And my mom would she would have quite a different music taste to my dad because she's like a decade later than him, so like her stuff would more be like ABBA and like Elton John. She's a pop girly.
She's a pop girly.
So I think that's where I get both of like
best of both worlds.
Like older music taste. But yeah, no, I think at like 15 I discovered the 1975, and then like that kind of just went on a trajectory of like indie rock. Yeah.
And then when you brought in other band members, did you feel that like really changed the dynamic of the band? Because everyone, as you were kind of mentioning, I mean, everyone has their own influence, everyone has their own background, and obviously, I mean, the people you were playing with have their own background in terms of like going to places like BAM as well as actually playing in live bands and things like that. So how do you find the music of SPRITZ actually changed like when more people were added?
I mean, I I hadn't really fleshed out a lot of our original stuff at that point. I kind of I finished 3 songs that week because I was like, we need original stuff as well. We can't just do covers. And I'd had Anyway finished for a while, which is the song that just came out. But the two, like all of those ones, all I could hear was literally just me and an acoustic guitar. So like I knew what I wanted it to sound like, and somehow they all just got it the first time. Like we just ran through it. I was like, well, that sounds great. We can move on. And I think it also kind of, in a way, changed the way I write music because like I still like the acoustic end of things, but like there are some songs I'm like, oh, this will sound good once I have a full band with me and I know that they'll like have the same vision. Like we all, because our like music tastes are so similar, we all we know how each other work, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, totally. Is that how the kind of the music making actually begins as a start? Were you kind of like writing it on acoustic and then bringing it to the band, or is that partially how it works, or other times it's more of a jam session? Like how's the songwriting, I guess, actually for the band kind of work?
I think for the band, it normally starts with like a voice note at 3 a.m. from Rachel or an audio file being like, hey, I wrote this. What do you think? And we're all like, oh yeah, that sounds good. And then we'll all listen to it. And then
I'll send the chords, which Sarah hates me for because it's an open D all the time and she doesn't like we get to rehearsal and we'll kind of like do like a rough run through. Just to like get the chords down.
Yeah, just like flesh it out. And then after that, we kind of start adding things and talking about it and think, okay, what's going to sound good? What do we want this to sound like? How is this going to work all together? What parts could we add in? Everyone's got like kind of fun like ideas. And again, like it sort of depends. I think everyone, like depending on the song, each member will sort of maybe have a part of which we go like, oh yeah, like that'd be fucking class. Like in one of our songs, Dying Light, there's like a breakdown in it. And I can't remember who suggested it.
It was Luca, I think.
Luca, I was gonna say, I think it was Luca. She was like, "Oh, this song would work really well with this kind of drum bit." And we were like, "Oh, that's like." So it's kind of like a natural process to it.
Yeah, because for ages we were like trying to figure out, oh, should we like write a bridge for it? Do we just like make it a shorter song? And Luca was like, "Hang on, I have."
Yeah, so it's quite conversational, basically. I think once it gets to the rehearsal stage and the band stage and putting it together, but it generally starts off with you and Holly, like being like, here's a song or a bit of a song or half a song or here's a melody.
Yeah.
Work away. Let's go.
Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a very democratic process, would you say?
Yeah, I think so.
But I'd say so generally, yeah.
I like the idea of like kind of like really kind of listening to what the other members want, because I think I don't know, I think you get more interesting stuff that way. I don't know if you agree, but like it is kind of like I don't know, sometimes, like, because I used to play in bands when I was younger, and it was like sometimes you get kind of precious about it because you could be kind of like, oh, this is my little idea, and then it expands, and sometimes you can be like, I don't really like what it's become, and then other times it's like really great. Do you think if you have kind of like a certain set idea for what a song should be, and then it kind of alters and it turns into something perhaps that you don't like, do you think you kind of have the voice to sort of go, actually, can we rein it in a bit, or how does that kind of work?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, like I was saying, like we do kind of like I just love every idea that they come up with. So I'm like, yeah, go for it. But like I found that with like playing with other people before the band that like I would have quite a hard time being like, hey, I don't really like that idea.
Sure.
Can we not do that? But like I hate confrontation at the best of times. So like I was just kind of like, oh yeah, it sounds fine. But like I think the way that we all work together works for our music.
Yeah, I think it's very effective. I think that there's an element, at least in my head, where I'm like, there's just no point being precious about things, and like you kind of just go with thick skin. Like at the end of the day, no, but like you got to work with people, and even if there's like maybe something that in the back of your head you're like, oh, I wouldn't have done it that way. That's not the point, like
as long as it sounds good, because
totally.
like even like with the song that just came out anyway, like it sounded so different a year ago, and like it just like a lot of like the changes that we make comes from just like playing it differently each time when we're rehearsing. We're like, oh, what did we do last time? But
No, totally.
yeah, it is. It's good to like take input from the people you're playing with because
like
you can't think of everything for a song.
Totally, and it's like it's like I don't know. I think in my mind, for me, I'm like I don't fucking know anything.
Yeah,
I don't like why like whenever because everyone's got an ego. Like everyone, like if you put an idea forward and somebody kind of goes, oh, I don't really like that. Your first response is to be like, fuck you, like fuck you, know. It's not. But then you have to be like, no, well, maybe
you're not doing it on stage.
Like, and you have to accept that. I don't know, and that makes it more fun too, because you're not
actually playing gigs. Do you treat gigs kind of like a workshop almost, where you can kind of I guess kind of with a live audience in front of you, you can kind of like gauge reactions in real time. I don't know if that like in any way influences what you're doing in terms of like this is what the song is going to sound like on the record, or is by the time the songs get debuted live, are they already kind of like set in stone?
To an extent, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think we've never like actively changed anything.
No.
Like because of like a live performance.
Right.
But I think it's been interesting to see what songs people will remember when they come back again. And then you kind of go, okay, internally I'm like, okay, people really like that one. So
don't change it too much kind of thing.
Yeah, and in a way that's like that song's clearly doing something that song's not. So why is that? If that makes sense. I think that's definitely influenced. Now we write more songs, I think. The ones that you've been writing and Holly's been writing, I think have been influenced maybe a little bit by that, like subconsciously.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, oh, like people really like that one, so we write another one. Let's continue down that line a little bit more. But we've never like actively, we never played a gig and had a song and then afterwards been like, okay, we need to like change that song. And I would never do that because like fuck the audience.
Yeah.
We're here for us, not you.
Yeah, exactly. I don't give a shit what you think.
Have you found actually kind of gigging in the Dublin music scene has been for you guys? Because I mean, looking at the gigs you guys have done, I mean, like one thing I've talked about this extensively with other artists I've talked about. But one thing I've noticed with kind of the Irish music scene is because everything is so sort of centralized in the city center, and everything is so everyone's like playing the same clubs, that you see a lot of like cross-pollination between different musical styles and different musical acts, but it doesn't seem people are kind of confined by genre to like indie or hip hop or metal or anything like that. It seems like everyone's kind of cross-pollinating. At least that's what I see anyway. I was wondering, have you found kind of actually like how do you find the Dublin music scene at least?
Like I think generally we've had a fairly good experience with it. Like there's the occasional like band that you'll play with who like you like is not that they're like bad people or anything, but like you just don't click with them, like you don't chat to them, you're just like there because you both have to play a gig.
Yeah, that's delicate.
Okay.
But you know, like we've never had like any major issues. Generally everyone's been fine.
Totally. I think it's like a fun environment overall.
Yeah.
I mean, like and it's quite small, so you do get to know people. People like, and even if you like get to know them, like you're not like friends. People like know you, and that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And then you'll have people like you'll play gigs that whatever, or you'll go to a gig, and someone like that you might know a little bit who you didn't think knew you at all would be like, oh, like come open for us, and that's like kind of sweet.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, like you've like seen something and you've liked it, and that's like kind of fun, even if we're not friends. There's still like a sort of everyone kind of like asks each other, and like that's nice.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of like weird when like, because we've only been a band for a year, but like when people are like, oh, you're in SPRITZ, I'm like, sorry, why do you know who I am?
But I think what you were getting at is that unfortunately it's like all music scenes, it's very male orientated.
Yes.
Sure.
And when you're in a band where there's only one man, that can get fun backstage.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
You know.
Has that been a challenge? I mean, in terms of in terms of like the gender dynamics, I guess. Not within the band, I mean within the scene. Sorry, just to be clear.
I mean,
not hugely.
No. Like,
no.
I played like one gig with another band that I like no longer exists, but like just before we played one, and I was the only girl in it, and like that was such a different experience than like in terms of like our band and then like our band playing other gigs. Like it was such a different experience. Like the vibes were much worse. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But like
I think whenever, and I think even we feel it when we're opening for people.
Yeah.
Like it I think it's just there's an added element of pressure.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you have to in some way impress people, and people are much quicker, especially men, to get at you about stuff.
Yeah.
And to be like, oh, like, are you sure you want to do that? Or like, are you sure that's the way you're doing it? Or like, oh, are you really gonna use that? And I'm like, fuck off.
Yeah. And like,
don't give it like a shit.
Yeah.
And then even if I am wrong, go like, ugh.
And like if there's like a gig where like you're like we played gigs where like we're on last, but then like the bands before us have just been like fully men, and like there's almost like a fear that people are just going to be like there for that band and then gonna leave afterwards, and then like you're gonna be left with like a tiny crowd. But
which has happened.
Which has happened.
But
I think that's so lame when like people leave before the headline because they're friends at the summer. Like, I've seen that happen before.
It's just a pressure. You just feel it. You feel in a way. You feel like you have to be better, or you have to prove yourself in some way, and you have to actively kind of fight that feeling and be like, no, I don't need to do any of that. I can just do what I want, and I don't need to listen to these people.
Yeah,
and that can just be sometimes a little bit suffocating initially.
Yeah. No, it's something I'm interested in because, like, I think you can look empirically and just say, well, there are more opportunities for, women, for female bands as well as like non-binary artists as well. But then you kind of go, well, okay, but the opportunities are there. What are the quality of those opportunities, if that makes sense? Like, I think they
like what are the outcomes kind of thing.
Yeah. I want to talk about your debut single anyways. You mentioned it came out at the beginning of this month. Well, I guess the first question I was going to ask was, why did you decide to release this as your debut single, as kind of the introduction to the band?
It's the one that's been around the longest. Like I did a songwriting course in BIM last year, and I wrote it in like the first few months of that, and it was like the first song that Sarah and I played together that wasn't a cover. Like I did it for an assessment and got her on board for it. And then I think it was the first like non-cover we played with Rishi and Luca as well. And like it was just the one that kind of like stuck out the most as being like, oh, it makes sense to release this one first.
Yeah.
And also I think even leading up to us recording it, like it was the one that like the crowd would remember the most. like other than Dying Light, but like
Yeah.
very early on they started like singing like the little oh bit like song back to us, which was kind of wild, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like it's our best song because we've worked on it the longest
Yeah.
and we've spent the most time on it.
Yeah.
And thinking about it. So I think that it just made sense. Like I think all of us were like, yeah, that's probably the one.
Yeah.
Do you know? Like it's just mutual agreement.
I have to ask about that. You mentioned the songwriting course there. So obviously you've been writing songs prior to this. The band had existed prior to the songwriting course. So I was wondering, did you feel you got anything out of that course? Because I don't know, with songwriting, it's kind of difficult because I think sometimes it can be kind of calculating, kind of like I don't know, true precedent. It can kind of there's right and wrong ways to write a song, so to speak. But I think
Yeah.
songwriting in a lot of ways is quite instinctual and indeed not even just like writing songs, but even like in terms of the production of the song, in terms of what everyone contributes. Sometimes I think instinct can kind of be the right thing, where it's just kind of like this just feels right to add this here or something like that. How do you feel actually doing songwriting as kind of like an educational thing, as kind of a didactic thing, altered your songwriting, or did you kind of have the opposite? Went,
I think like I really enjoyed the course. Like I'm not sure if I necessarily learned any like songwriting techniques because
right,
like it is such like a personal thing and like subjective, like how you go about it, and like it even changes per song sometimes.
sure,
But like overall, like I think it was just the meeting people and like being in that kind of headspace. It got me writing more because like I did write songs before that, but never really any ones that I was like satisfied with or would be like happy to like perform in front of people. But like when I got through that songwriting course, I was like, oh, so this is what I should be doing. But like
right,
just in not in a way of like being told like this is how you do it. It was more like I guess a comfort thing. Like I was like around other people who were like so talented at songwriting, and like they were like sharing ideas, and like I don't know, it was just a very communal thing that I think helped. Yeah.
do you find actually that course in any way kind of influenced the way you listen to other people's music?
Um kind of. I think it like gave me more of an appreciation for like genres that I wouldn't necessarily gravitate towards. Like I will genuinely listen to anything, but like I don't know, I think like there was one or two people who were like hipstery kind of very acoustic um like 2013 kind of hipster kind of songwriting styles that and like they were really good, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I don't hate this genre as much as I thought I did. But like
Still a little bit, still a little
a
bit.
little bit, but like it did just give me more of appreciation for like different styles of songwriting.
Sure. Do you find that that course anyway is kind of or sort of that, I guess, that open appreciation, I guess, that you're kind of alluding to there, in any way is kind of shaping the way you write, or have consideration for some of the elements that you're going to bring in with Spritz's songs going forward, or do you think I don't know, the band is kind of continuing as was?
Um, I don't know. I think it like influenced it a little bit in like the sense it kind of like I think going into the course I felt like I had to like write in like one genre,
Right.
but like and like I don't know, in a band you kind of feel like if you're writing songs for a band you're like kind of like, oh, we're like a this genre band, like I like should probably stick to this, but like I think it's kind of given me like like I don't really know. I can't think of the word, but
Sure.
like opportunity, quote unquote. I can't think of the actual word, but like to branch out in like the different styles and like ways that I would write a song.
Perfect. I guess one final thing I'll ask is, what are you both like listening to now, and just in general? I mean, like, do you find that the stuff you're listening to now is kind of influencing your ideas for like future songs? And also, I mean, like, because the band, as you mentioned, I mean, is quite expansive. I think there's up to 6 artists, I believe. Like, if I'm correct with the dynamic of the actual artists, it's kind of like um. Uh, I don't know. It's just like it's based around people's schedule and people's sort of availability. So, uh, you try to have kind of dynamic. Again, if I'm getting this correct me if I'm wrong. But my understanding is that um, you try and make it as adaptable to people's schedules as possible. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
say so, definitely.
It is kind of it kind of makes it harder because our bassist Rishi does live in Paris now, so we do
Well,
like we try
issue.
do as much like rehearsing as we can, but it like most of it comes together like the few days before the gig when he is able to come back over. But definitely I think whatever I'm listening to at the moment influences how I play and like what I write and like the style that I'll go for, because I was listening to a lot of like shoegaze over like the winter, and then
Yeah,
me
of
and Sarah
course.
decided to like mess around and do a demo, and like she was like, "Have you been listening to like Slow Dive?" And I was like, maybe.
No, exactly. No, I think, and that's kind of fun. It's funny, actually, just what you said earlier about like that, because like when I listen to stuff now, and actually maybe for a long time, like when I listen to someone playing guitar, I'm always like, oh, like how are they doing that? I'm like, that sounds really cool. Especially when I go to a live show, like all the time, I'm looking at like what is that person using? How are they getting that sound? That's really cool. I want to recreate that. How can I recreate that? And that's like nerd element of it for me. Like
Yeah.
I'm really interested in that.
Like, how would you get that into like fit it
Totally.
into one of our songs?
And that kind of like that emulation element, like how do they achieve that? So yeah, I do that all the time, and whenever I'm listening to, I'll be going like, oh, I'd love to try and get that similar kind of sound in what we're doing, or I'd love to try something like that. So I think it's very, very influential.
Yeah. Well, I sometimes think it's interesting when I've talked to other artists who've like, the limitation of the gear that's available in terms of their amps and their pedals and stuff. It's like, because I kind of get that sense too when you like listen to a lot of music where it's like, there's so many different like elements that you kind of want to incorporate or that are like just catch your ear or that like really kind of like inspire you. Do you find I don't know, this is my editorializing, but sometimes you can get a little crazy trying to think about like, oh, how can I get that sound? How can I get that? Do you find um I don't know, you have to kind of like limit yourself sometimes in terms of like not trying to drive yourself crazy with that?
Oh, totally. I think you can go down a massive rabbit hole with it. I mean, obviously, really, like I play some other instruments, but the only one I play is guitar and like primarily. And if you want to take the route of having 17 fucking pedals, and or like you can go there, and it can sound amazing. Like there's
Yeah.
there's a real talent and a real skill to it. It's not a judgment thing. I don't think any one way is better, at all. But it's intense and it takes time and effort and like you said, money as well, which a lot of times you do not have. And I think there's something what I quite like about it, and especially I like with our band as well, especially when we're recording or thinking of ideas, because you are limited. Like a limitation in a way provides an element for like more expansive creativity, because okay, well, if I want it to sound like that, what's the closest I can possibly get with my like one amp, my one pedal, and this guitar, and what can I do, and how also can we work together in what we're playing to achieve that? And that kind of makes it more fun as well. Like sometimes the limitation will actually drive you to do things more creatively, because like if I just wanted to sound a certain way and I can just go and buy the pedal, like it's not as fun. It's kind of just like, oh, I can just go buy it,
Yeah.
Like I actually had this recently, because this is a bit of tangent, but I was researching like your man Jack White, all the pedals and stuff that he used, and like how he was doing it, and he like if you said Seven Nation Army, you can just go buy the pedal, you can just literally go buy it, and you will sound like Jack White on that album, and like that's like fine, but it's more fun to me if like you're fucking around for like 7 hours and you're like,
one decimal at a time.
yeah, I'm like plugging it into like a bass out. There's just kind of more. There's more like stuff, and then you'll find more things that way, and that kind of makes it more exciting.
And like you might be aiming for one thing, but then you'll like find another sound on the way and be like, oh, never mind, that sounds better.
Totally, exactly.
Yeah. Do
that's
you use a digital pedal board, or do you just buy the actual, pedal boards from just like one at a time, or how do you kind of like, I guess, kind of like build your gear?
Our gear is like one pedal each.
Okay.
I have like a tuner and a chorus. That is
Okay.
the rest is
That's
just
all
like
you need.
I think one of the digital pedal boards would be cool. Like I know a few people who have them, and it would be very handy to have.
Yeah, I have a few more. I'm just limited by my money. I'm building a paddleboard right now. I'm trying to find a piece of wood to like. But for a long time I was very anti-pedal, and now I've kind of come around to it. But I think that's just the nature of how I started playing guitar and
your punk teacher.
Yeah, exactly, and the kind of minimalist approach.
I want to just wrap up by asking about the production of Spritz. So, are you working with an external producer, or is it all done by you guys? And are you recording like in studios, or are you doing it at home?
We Anyway was recorded in this studio that's basically just in a shed in the back of a house in Kimmage, with Matt Winston, who is a legend. I play bass for my friend, and he's the drummer in her band as well. So like I know him quite well.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
And he like helped us like come up with new ideas as well, because he like I think October, November was just a shoegaze kind of time, because he was like, we can make this sound so shoegaze if we just added this. I was like, okay, Matt, go for it. So like it's there, but it's like very quiet in the mix. But then he just sent the stems over to Luca, our drummer, and she did the mixing for it, because she mixes for her other band as well. And then she sent it back to Matt to be mastered. So it's like a mix of both. Like
very small scale. Like we realistically, Matt was kind of like recording engineer, I would say.
Yeah.
Ultimately, and then also played producer a little bit when we were recording, and then after that, it was really like Luca who mixed and produced.
The rest of it, basically.
and then Matt mastered it for us.
So it's nice to have kind of that like
control, I think.
Control, because like he like completely let us have as much control as we wanted.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any advantage to having kind of outsiders kind of like listen to your music in terms of getting like virgining ears on it or anything like that? Or do you think that's I don't know, you kind of have the sound you want, and it's better just to kind of like stick to your guns and kind of like know what it is you want? I mean, in terms of that balance between like outsiders' opinions and your own kind of like dedication, I mean, how do you find kind of like that dance, I guess?
I mean, I think like anything, it's about balance. Like you can never, you should never be so closed off to ideas or critique that it's just the way you're doing it, because that would be silly. And sometimes if someone's telling you something, you should listen, and if more people tell you it, and it's also good to get that outside input. But then I think also
you don't want it to become their song.
Exactly. Like there's a really weird gut feeling you get sometimes where somebody says something and you just go,
no,
that's fair.
Like, you're wrong. But even it's just not. That's not. There's a nice like balance you find, I think, with it that in a way is indescribable, and you just kind of know it. There's sometimes something will say something and you'll go, I've never thought that before. Like yeah. And sometimes initially you'll be like, no, I don't agree, and then you'll try it and you'll go, fuck, they're right.
Yeah.
Like, and then other times someone says to me, I'll immediately be like, no, not gonna work, and it doesn't work, and you're like, yeah, I was right.
Yeah,
I'm a genius.
I knew it.
So there's a nice symbiosis, a yin and yang to it, I think. Which is cool.
Perfect. I guess I have two final questions. The last one, one of the last ones I'll ask is the penultimate question, I guess, is you mentioned that your bass player is now based in Paris, so any kind of gig is sort of an event in a way. Do you think that adds a mystique to the band in the sense that, like, I think like sometimes there's a disposability perhaps to gigs for local acts where people are like, oh, this show's on Friday or whatever, but I'll miss that and go to the next one or whatever with Spritz, because it has to be so like planned out. It's like, well, if you miss this one, you're not going to catch us for a while.
Yeah, no, like we had a good like 4-week run of gigs in September just before Rishi left, and then one in October, and then like he was back for recording, but like we weren't gonna like organize a gig for like one of the days that he was back when we were supposed to be recording. So like we like the one at the start of this month, like that was the first one since October, and like we do have another one next week,
The week after.
the week after.
I'll
But
try and get this out to coincide with that.
oh yeah. But we have a different basis stepping in just because Rishi can't make it back, which will be interesting because we've never played with a different basis, so it's gonna be sad. But like,
But I think there's always been like a core element of chaos to SPRITZ.
oh yes.
And the gigs.
I think from the fact that we met 5 days before the band.
And then this thing, it's like even now, and even though we've been playing together for a long time, like every time before we play a gig, no matter how far in advance we know when the gig is going to be, it's like it's unbelievable. It's like 2 weeks before, there'll always be just mass panic, and we'll all just freak out. There's an element of like chaos about it, which I think only adds to that performance.
Exactly, because then like before the performance we'll be like so calm, we'll be like, oh, this is grand, we'll be fine.
It's fine. Something's gonna happen.
Like we just like lose all care for, like at like in the last like hour before the gig we're like, it'll be fine, and then it's always so fun.
Procrastination is a beautiful thing, I think.
How I work in every element.
Do you want to plug that gig that you were mentioning there?
Oh yes, we are opening for our friend Lara Fitzsimons on the 25th in Whelan's Upstairs for her release gig, for her first single, which is coming out on the 21st.
And I guess the final thing I'll ask you guys is just what you have planned for 2025, like in terms of gigs, releases, anything like that, because it's a weird thing when you release your first single, because like I know some people like when you have like that first single out, it's kind of like, okay, well now we're a band who releases music, so it's kind of like I don't know, there's an expectation to have some kind of schedule in terms of like consistent releases throughout the year and all that to kind of keep notoriety on the band. I don't know if you feel that pressure that like now you have to have a kind of schedule, to like a consistent schedule for the rest of the year or anything like that, or is it just kind of like, no, when it will come, it will come?
In a way, like I kind of like we're all quite busy at the moment, but like I do kind of feel like, oh, we should record another one and then another one, and like because we do want to release an EP by the end of the year.
That's the goal.
That's the main goal. And we have like the next 2 ones not necessarily planned, but like we know which ones we're going to record.
We know what's coming next.
But it's just a matter of getting everyone in the same country, basically.
I think as well, like now the singles out, like we've all felt like there's very like interesting, like I think when you're in a band you get those peaks and dips of momentum. I think because of the single, we over Christmas there was like a kind of dip in momentum, and now because of the single you get that big like drive in it, and then you just played a gig and there's another gig coming up and you're doing whatever and singles come out, so you kind of, when you feel that momentum, your natural response is to keep it going and to be like, okay, we've got this now, let's keep going, let's pound more. But we also want to play a festival, I think, this year. One of the goals, and I think maybe an abroad show. Or like at least outside of Dublin.
That's outside Dublin is abroad.
Nice.
Made to Wicklow. Oh my god. Thanks very much for your time. It was really nice.
Thank you for having us.
I guess I'll just say, is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up, or
stream anyway?
It's on all platforms now.
It is on all platforms. Come to our gigs. We're broke. We need the money.
We have merch as well. So please pay us.
Please buy our shit. I just need money to like out.
Perfect. Thanks very much for your time, guys, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
too.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We're an independent venture run by yours truly, and as I said at the beginning, liking, rating, subscribing and sharing really helps us out a lot. If you're feeling extra generous, we do have a PayPal donation link in the episode description, but don't feel obligated, of course. We've also begun releasing occasional exclusive episodes on Spotify, so subscribe there if you'd be interested in hearing those. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.